15 minutes of relational time. Can I just take this out? Hey guys, you want to go ahead and grab a seat? Come on over. We're going to get started here. Andrea, I did get your text, by the way. Sorry I haven't responded yet. That's later. That's at the end. And Jimmy's doing that. Doing announcements. Well, welcome, guys. Would you go ahead and grab the hand of the person next to you? You know, we get together here every week to essentially learn how Jesus lived. We get to kind of analyze that on a week-by-week basis, and because we're all terrible at trying to figure out how to implement that, we need a safe place to do that in. So that's the purpose of our time together today. But would you just bow your heads with me, and we'll say a quick prayer to get us started? Father, thank you for the design of giving your son as somebody that we get to watch and learn from and how he lived. We thank you for what he meant, and as we continue to try and aspire to be more like you individually and relationally, we ask that you would just send your presence to overwhelm us. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for a safe place to function and learn how to live like you. Amen. Would you just say hi to the person next to you, and we'll get started here in just a minute.
Hey, let's start off our evening together by singing this song. The song talks about how God's love will never fail us. Nothing can separate, even if I ran away. Your love never fails. I know I still make mistakes. I know I still make mistakes. You have new mercies for me every day. Your love never fails. You stay the same. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, 'cause I know that you love me. Wind is strong and the water's deep. I'm not alone here in these open seas. Your love never fails. The chasm is far too wide. I never thought I'd reach the other side. Your love never fails. Your sing that, I just realized this is kind of a song about defiance in a sense. Instead of defying what you see, whatever might be coming sort of against you or wanting to intimidate you. And if you have anything like that in your life, I want to encourage you to sing this chorus just a little bit louder. And sing it with a sense of we know in whom we have believed. And we know that God is bigger, and even though things can be scary or unpredictable, we can stand against those things, and God will stand with us. Okay, let's sing You Stay the Same. 'Cause you stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. When the oceans rage, with me now. Let's clap and applaud as a sign that says we believe that. Excellent. Nice to be together. You guys doing good? Yes? All right. Kind of went from loud to quiet. We're going to take a minute and reset. I have a few things I want to share, and then we're going to have a little discussion time. So if you needed to get something to drink or didn't get to say hi to somebody who recently came in, go ahead and do that, and I'm going to bring you right back. All right. Today we're starting something new. And in keeping with the cheesy movie or television themes, we're talking about To Boldly Go. Who knows what the reference is from? Anybody? Star Trek. That was on TV at my house a lot growing up. And we're going to talk about boldly going, maybe not where no one has gone before, but maybe somewhere you have never gone before. So brace yourself. But before we do that, anybody besides me like action or martial arts movies? I kind of have this weird thing for the martial arts movie or action movies, in particular, the ones where you have sort of the nobody or the just kind of run-of-the-mill average Joe who goes through this process of kind of growing and becoming sort of a hero or a master of something. And there's a lot of good ones. But the one I grew up kind of initially falling in love with was Karate Kid. And I love the story of, this kind of nerdy kid who does sort of these incredible things and becomes a hero. And there's this one scene that to me is the sort of the iconic scene of his process. The process being that all of these heroes or people who become masters go through these tests where they sort of have to prove themselves. And there's little tests, and the tests get bigger, and then they sort of eventually become, the hero. But this one scene I want to play for you is the ice block scene. And to set this up, so you have this kid who's sort of in training, and Mr. Miyagi's there, and there's a bet made that he can't break these blocks of ice. And so it's this big moment. So I want to play this for you it's only just a couple minutes here. Oh, you know what? Our audio is quiet, but it doesn't really matter. Can you tell who the bad guys are? He said, I'm going to focus. What are you going to do? He says, I'm going to pray. Because he's got money. This is a bet between the two older gentlemen. He's got to break the blocks of ice. And the last guy broke 2 of them, and I think he's got 4. And Mr. Miyagi it was 6. He upped the bet. And so nobody thinks he can do it, not even himself. So this, to me, is like one of the ultimate scenes. Sorry, I must have something not quite plugged in up there. That's why you didn't hear the audio very well. This is one of my favorite scenes because it's a nobody. He's in kind of a hostile environment, but everybody's watching, of course. And so there's the glory of the experience of sort of being the hero. And I was thinking about how fun that is and how we kind of look forward to and idolize those moments when people get to experience that. I'm a big fan of superhero movies, especially when the superhero is a nobody at first and then kind of becomes a hero. It tugs on something in me. So here's my question I'd like you to discuss, and this is just a fun one tonight. What is your favorite story of becoming someone who became great or became a master or became a hero? Kind of going from nothing to something great, who accomplished something unexpected. Think about that for a moment, and then join with some other people at your tables and just share what is that example. Do you have a story where you really like that? And it could be a book, movie, whatever, or a real life example. It could be real life, doesn't it? But share that, and then share why. Share why that matters to you, okay? So let's gather up for a little bit. I'm not going to give you too long, so just jump right in, and we'll be back in a couple minutes, okay? Okay, I'm bringing you back together. Favorite, anybody want to share favorite story? Caleb. What's that? What's it called? Or under? What's it called again? I don't know. Oh, Ip. Yes, I've seen those movies. I've never watched one though. I've seen Ip Man. What's that? No, they've been around for a while. Anybody else? Favorite? Yes. Oh wait, say it again.
Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6. That's a good one. I like that one. Who else? Anybody? Favorite stories of Gene? Oh, taking me back. Oh, I want to hum the theme right now. Okay. Mr. Oliver Vass. That's a good one. Yes. He's everybody's hero. All right, who else? Mayuko, do you have one?
So Mayuko described her brother, and her brother in his last year of what we would consider high school dedicated himself to learning tennis, and to the detriment of his studies. And all his professors said, you're not going to get to go to college, you're not going to get to go to university, so they kind of wrote him off. But he practiced tennis, won the elite tournament, and then turned around and beat the expectation of all his professors and recovered all his studies in order to go to university.
That's pretty cool.
To her, that he is one of her heroes.
Awesome. That's nice. Anybody else? Favorite hero stories or becoming? Yeah?
I thought of a couple. Someone thought of Braveheart and Rocky.
Ooh.
Or not, and Rudy.
I see that there were no women in this group up here. Yeah, Braveheart, Rocky, Rudy. Rudy's a great one. Oh, man. Hi. See you later. Oh, really? What's the one of the future? 4 years from now. Oh, man. You're going to make it a goal to bring up Trump in every service, aren't you? That's kind of your goal. Oh, my gosh. Okay, well, let's tie this into something, shall we? So I believe God is calling us all to become something, and that something is great. However, I think our process of becoming is very different than the process we often idealize. We idealize these processes where we come to tests and we sort of prove ourselves, and we have these great moments like the ice block scene in Karate Kid, where we sort of achieve new heights, new feats of amazingness, and we sort of progress. And I want to talk about what I see as the process of becoming that God has invited us into, because it's very different. What would you say if someone said, I have a process for you to become something great, but you don't have to prove yourself to anybody? There are no big tests to pass. There's no claims you have to make about yourself. That would be difficult to envision, because we envision the process of becoming great as a process of, passing these tests. And I think we kind of need a bit of a new picture. And the picture that I just saw was just a road that goes somewhere great, where every step gets greater. And all you have to do on this road is just keep walking. And there are certainly challenges and things that come along that force us to figure out what to do and to grow in new ways. But they're not tests of proving yourself. They're just the next step. And I like this picture because, for one, you never get disqualified. The only way you can stop moving is just to choose to stop walking forward. But as long as you choose to keep kind of walking in that direction, you are becoming something. we're going to spend 2 weeks in the book of 2 Corinthians just looking at these 2 chapters. And the first chapter is chapter 3. And I think there's a really cool description of this process. And it really follows well on the heels of this grace series that we've been talking about. So, what are we becoming? Let's start there. I'm going to begin with just the first chunk of 2 Corinthians chapter 3. It says this: "Such is the confidence that we have through Christ towards God." And when I think about heroism or mastery, I think about confidence, okay? Not that we're competent of ourselves to claim anything as coming from us. Our competence, our ability, our mastery, if you want to call it that, is from God, who has made us competent to be ministers of this new covenant, not of letter, but of spirit. For the letter kills, but the spirit gives life. That's an interesting little chunk, and I want to dissect it for a minute. I think, and it's only natural, because this is the way kind of our society functions, but I think that our Christian systems of becoming, whatever you want to call that, the way our churches kind of tend to function is this idea that you kind of prove yourself along the way. And that there is sort of this select group of people who, through passing certain tests or accomplishing certain things, gets to progress, and pretty much everybody else doesn't really get to move forward or become great. And I think that there's actually sort of a perpetuation of this. There's a lot of people who just kind of feel like, I didn't go to Bible college, or, I didn't do the leadership training course at my church, or whatever it may be. And because of that, I'm just kind of maybe sidelined from the greatness crowd. And if you're really great, you'd be up here talking or, leading something for the church. I think that what Paul is trying to describe here is a process of becoming great that isn't so performance-oriented, which he calls this idea of the letter of the law. It is instead a gracious process, which is of the Spirit. So, have you ever heard or used the phrase, "I'm killing myself here," or "stop killing yourself"? What does that mean to you? What does it mean if someone said, "Hey, don't kill yourself," okay? What are they saying to you? Yeah, you're trying too hard, Jimmy. You're using what it takes to be alive to try and do something. You're exhausting your own resources. Don't kill yourself to try and make this happen. He says in here, this letter of the law, this idea that there are things you must do in order to progress or whatever. He said it kills. It kills you. It kills things. But then he gives an alternative. But the Spirit gives life. So the idea that we could either spend our time exhausting our resources and exhausting ourselves and essentially dying, or we could be a part of some other process that is a spiritual process that actually gives us life, that gives us resources for each day. There's this guy I recently found. He's a business guy, and I like a lot of his talks and the things he's describing because he's talking about kind of personal processes and organizations, how to be great, and essentially. But he talks about it for the right reasons, so it really caught my attention. And one of the phrases that I really liked, he was talking about how he, as an entrepreneur, really wanted to help entrepreneurs because he was going around and looking at people trying to start businesses and trying to begin new things who were just killing themselves, sacrificing their family, sacrificing all the important things in life to try and do this thing and just dying. And his phrase was, you're just doing it wrong. You don't have to do it that way. And he had this whole idea for, here's another way to go about it. And I thought, how often am I trying to accomplishing things, but I only see one way of getting it done. Maybe that's the way I watched, as I grew up, or that's the way that society has presented to me as the only way. But it's killer. what if someone came along and could say, but there is another way. Don't do it that way. You can do this, and you don't have to kill yourself. I have compassion when I watch people killing themselves. Whether it's, Christians killing themselves to become the Christian that we feel like we're supposed to be, or just people in life killing themselves to try and get somewhere. This unsustainable journey that requires everything you have and leaves nothing left for anything else. But I feel like a lot of us have got to a point where we're kind of saying, I'm not doing that. And I feel like globally, not just like in our church, but globally, there are a lot of people in Christianity saying, that's dumb. I am not interested in that process because I don't see the end of it leading to life. It's just, it's a rat race. So we have to figure out what to replace it with, and I think Paul described it here. So before I give the answer, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about why it's easier sometimes for us to just want to do it ourselves than maybe try something else. I believe lots of times we like to kill ourselves because there's some kind of weird glory in it. When you work hard and when you give it your all and you kill yourself, there is some kind of a, pat on our egos back that says, look how hard I work, look at what I, am able to accomplish. And I'm not saying hard work is bad at all, but I'm saying if that is keeping us from trying something different, then maybe we should reconsider. So let me read this next little bit that Paul describes. He says, okay, now listen, if the ministry of death, which is an interesting term for God giving the Ten Commandments, if this ministry of death, he says, this was chiseled in letters on stone tablets, that's Moses going up, if it came in glory so that the people of Israel couldn't even look at Moses' face because of the glory of his face. You remember the story, Moses came down the mountain with the tablets, his face was shining so that he had to put a cloth over it. So if that's how much glory there was in that process, how much more will the ministry of the Spirit come in glory? For if there was glory in the ministry of condemnation, much more does the ministry of justification abound in glory. So, ministry of death, ministry of condemnation, those are kind of heavy words to use for like the law that God gave Moses for the people of Israel. What's he talking about? Well, I think what he's saying is this was God's necessary step to show you, okay, here's 10 simple things, guys. Just pay attention and either don't do or do these things. Now, some of them, like don't kill. Like that one you kind of have to go out of your way to do wrong, right? There are other ones, though, like don't covet your neighbor's stuff. It's pretty simple. But just in that list of 10 things, how many things are pretty much impossible for us to actually do on our own? God was kind of serving humanity, I think, by saying, here's a list of 10 really basic, simple things, and you can't do it. Thanks, It's this service he did to us to show us, if you're going to try and do it all on your own, you will never, ever get there. It's a ministry of death. It's a way to realize that on our own we have nowhere to go but just the results of what happens when sin shows up, and that is death. So it's a necessary step. But Paul's point is that something so much better has come along. So much better than just trying to do it on our own. The old ministry, he said, was set aside so that something so much better can happen. And he said there is so much glory in it. Now, this is where I'm going to draw a little bit of connection. Think about the glory in doing it on our own. There is a certain kind of glory in that, right? The glory is, look what I was able to do. And that in itself, I don't believe is a bad thing at all. But when it steers us away from this other kind of glory, I think it becomes a bad thing. So the new glory goes beyond just brightening the face of one person. And I'm referring to, like, if I did something amazing, and we could say metaphorically, my face would shine. Like you look at people, somebody who does amazing, and they're kind of glowing to you. There is another kind of glory, another kind of shining, another kind of light that happens when, as Jesus said in Matthew 5:16, you let your light shine before men so that they see your good deeds and praise your Father who is in heaven. That kind of light, that brightness, doesn't just brighten up your face. It brightens the world. It enlightens other people. It's a greater glory. It's beyond just people saying, wow, look what he can do. It's people looking at saying, wow, look what God can do in people. Look what God can do in me. Because God is not differentiating between just special people. He's inviting everybody into this process. And there's a lot more glory and hope and light that comes when people see that it's not just your amazingness that accomplished that. It's God's amazingness showing up through you. So if we are called to be what he says in that first section, which is confident and competent, great in the way that God is calling us to be great, confident of our calling, of what he has invited us into, and competent, meaning I know what I'm doing, a sense of mastery at this whole life thing. If we want to be confident and competent, we have an opportunity to accept the fact that our competence can't come ultimately from ourselves. And that's a hard thing for everybody to accept, because that's kind of setting aside that glory that we have so often found to be, satisfying, and that people notice. We have to be willing to accept at some point that this ultimately is not going to be able to come from my competence. As Paul said, I'm not claiming anything about myself. So back to the journey on the road. This isn't about saying, look what I accomplished. It's about saying, as I take steps forward, I have to discover new ways of succeeding. And the new way of succeeding doesn't happen by the letter, which is, look what I can do. It happens by the Spirit, which is, look what God can do in me. And that is a totally different process of discovery. And I believe that we all ultimately know this, that we all encounter situations where we know our efforts are just not big enough to handle that deal, that situation. That I'm not smart enough, talented enough, whatever, to fix this problem in the world, or in myself, or in my family, or at my job. I can't fix it, and I feel stuck. Well, it's in those moments that I think that we need to not give up. We just need to do something differently. So what can we do? Here's the good part. Paul says, indeed, what once had glory has lost its glory because of this greater glory that's come. For if what was set aside came from glory, much more has the permanent come in glory. And then he says, since then we have this hope. So here's the result. If we have a hope that there's another way, a greater glory than just look what I was able to muscle through. Since we have this hope that God can help us, we get to act with great boldness, to boldly go, not like Moses, who put a veil over his face to keep the people of Israel from gazing at the end of this glory that was being set aside. But their minds were hardened, and indeed to this very day, when they hear the reading of the Old Covenant, that same veil is still there, since only in Christ is it set aside. Indeed, to this very day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their minds. But when one turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. Now, the Lord is the Spirit. So he's saying, I've been talking about Spirit. Now I'm going to make the connection. The Lord is the Spirit. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And all of us, with unveiled faces, seeing the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, the Spirit. So he's saying, if we want to journey into greatness from one degree of glory to another, there is this unveiling process. So let's talk about unveiling just for a minute. The veil, in my opinion, is anything that separates you from the Spirit and the presence of God. And I think that while, yes, there is that moment where we realize that Jesus is who he said he was, that there is a veil that is removed when we turn to the Lord, I also know that in my own life, I'm continually pulling back the veil. I'm continually discovering little things that separate me, keep me from the presence and the Spirit of God, and keep me at a distance. Interestingly, there's nothing on God's end that's keeping me out. The veils tend to be on my end, which is why I think Paul says we act with great boldness. Because when we have a veil, the veil is usually something that we're afraid to take away. It's some kind of fear that keeps us in a place of safety, but in a place of veiledness with God or with other people. So let me give you a couple examples. When you are confused, or when you feel lost or directionless in life, what kind of boldness does it take for you to bring your questions unveiled to God and risk having to trust whatever comes back? See, I think we talk about praying and stuff a lot, but I'm not talking about just saying a prayer and kind of crossing our fingers and hoping. I'm talking about ripping off whatever veil is keeping us in that place where, I don't know the answer, but, well, we'll just see what happens. To really honestly searching and seeking with a whole heart and a whole mind to find out what God would say to us, to trust that if I boldly go into this void where I've never been, maybe a question I've never asked before, that whatever I find will be good and will be exactly what I need. Let me phrase it another way. When you're hurting, when you feel like you've been broken, will you be bold enough to bring your brokenness and your woundedness unveiled, exposed, alone with God, and as you present it, discover what he would do, what kind of comfort, what kind of healing, what he would bring to you. See, I think these are the things that differentiate greatness in Christianity versus just kind of, going through the motions. It's not about, activity level in church. It's not about accomplishing some things in training or knowledge. It's about our ability to live unveiled before God. That is what changes us from glory to glory. And then is also the hardest thing. Okay, last one. What about when in the face of great challenges, what about when it feels like the ocean is raging and you feel small and insignificant and ineffectual to effect the change that you want to make happen? What kind of boldness does it take to come before God by yourself and rip off the veil that says, I am way too limited, and to see what God would say to you, what step he would say, I know you are, I want you to take this step, and I'm going to help you. See, it's those moments that I think make all the difference in the world. And we can talk about, the fact that God knows us and loves us and that we're accepted, and we can talk about trusting God with our lives, but I also believe there is this aspect of the daily, weekly, monthly exercising of this kind of trust and faith, which is very, very difficult. One of the great benefits of living this way with God is that actually enables us to unveil ourselves to other people. Paul has a great phrase here at the end that I want to, there we go. He says, so with these unveiled faces, as we see the glory of the Lord, as we expose those parts of ourselves that we have kept veiled, we see the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror. We're being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. I like this idea that all of us, as we unveil our faces, it's sort of this exponential power that happens. It's one thing when an individual and when we experience it, but what happens when you get in a group of people who are all unveiling themselves before God, and there's this exponential effect where the glory and the awesomeness of God becomes reflected not just in you, but off of you to me. And not just in me, but off of me to you. I think there's this compounding effect that happens. And that's what our churches are for. It's where you show up and you interact, and we're around people who are experiencing, if you want to call it glory, or if you want to call it whatever, this unveiledness with God. And God is brightening up our lives. He's changing us and molding us and evolving us, right? That's the goal. We're being shaped. We're being changed. And something happens when we get with other people who are doing that. And it's a multiplying effect. And it feeds itself and it builds and grows, and other people become caught up in seeing what God is doing. All of you probably notice, we're a little different here, our church. I don't do a lot of sort of the normal things that you would do to attract people to a church. We have some new fancy brochures that Jesse designed. If you guys want to take a look, they're over there. They're really nice. And this is why. This is exactly the reason why. Because if I want anybody to come and be attracted to something, I don't want them to come and be attracted to the old kind of glory. That's just not good enough. And it has such lacking eternal properties, for a better term. But what happens if they become attracted, someone becomes attracted to the light of God that is reflected in our lives? Then we have something to offer, right? That's a good reason for someone to come and want to hang out with us. So we're talking about glory, but of course it's all going to start in a very unglorious way. And this is it. It's me or you alone in our weak moments, in our limitedness, just tearing off whatever veil is keeping us from being with God. Whatever has got us afraid or feeling like we're not good enough, feeling like we're falling short, hurting, whatever it is. These are the moments that make us great. These are the moments that take us forward, that change us from glory to glory. And today, I want to ask you to join with me in a season as we approach the end of the year of really exploring as a church, but obviously, on an individual basis here. What does it mean for you? What does it look like for you? Because it's going to look different for all of us, depending on what you're facing, depending on what your life looks like, depending on where you're at on your road. What does it mean to you to start tearing off the veil or veils? And how can we help each other? That's what I'm really interested in. That's why I'm willing to pastor a church. I mean, you all are great. But what I mean is, church is hard. And my greatest hope in it is that together we find a way to help each other forward in this process. Because I think it's a beautiful process and it's worth fighting for. I want to invite Josh to come back, and I'm going to hand this off because I only have two hands. Oh, did Jesse have to go? Eric's gonna do it. You guys can fight over it. And I want to sing this song, and I guess I'll say just that we don't have to wait till tomorrow. It's nice when we're all together like this and we have an opportunity. You have some incredible musicians. Nobody laughed. Incredible. We're going to play a song. And music is beautiful because it does help us to bring things to the surface that would often just kind of lie dormant. And this song describes God as a shepherd. And if this helps you, which I hope it does, I would like you to, either listen or sing, whatever's your best way to do this. to God, who is our shepherd, who is with us, who has promised to stay with us, and see if he won't bring to you a picture for your own life, an idea. It's going to be across the spectrum. You may see something, very, I don't know. You may see something very out there, and that's just how you interpret the way God speaks to you. You may see something very concrete. You may not see anything. But what I want to ask everybody is, would you join me in the process of beginning to discover what are those veils? Is God going to show you a veil? Maybe. Is he going to give you an opportunity to pull the veil out a little bit and start letting him come and bring his light into that area? Maybe. Is he going to give you something to do, a challenge? Maybe. I don't know what. But I do believe that when we seek with our whole heart, the Bible's promise is that we will find, and God will reward you when you earnestly seek him. I believe that with all my heart. And so that's why I'm inviting you to do this for a minute. So in the process, in the waiting, you're making melodies. You're making melodies over me. And your presence is the promise. I am a pilgrim on a journey. You lift my head, and you will lift my head above the mighty waves. You are able to keep me from stumbling. And in my weakness, you are the strength that comes from within. Good shepherd of my soul, take my hand and lead me on. You make my footstep and my path secure. So walking on water is just the beginning. Cause my faith to rise, my faith to rise. Stand at attention, for you're calling me, for you are calling me to greater things. And you will lift my head over the mighty waves. You are able to keep me from stumbling. And in my weakness, you are the strength that comes from within. Good shepherd of my soul, take my hand and lead me on. Oh, how I know how I love you, how I love you, for you have my Take my hand and lead me on. God, we do invite you to take our hand and lead us to that next step. And thank you that it's not a step that we have to do on our own, not a commandment that you've given us that says, do this or fail. Instead, it's an invitation that says, come and be with me. Come and bring your limitations, your fears, your failures, your hurts. Bring it all to me and come and unveil yourself and watch what I will do in you and watch what that kind of glory feels like and looks like. It's different. Absolutely, it's different, but it's greater. It not only lights up your face, but it lights up those around you as they see what I can do in you. God, would you give us boldness to go where we have never gone with you before? And thankfully, God, we know that we will never exhaust. We'll never get to that place where you said, well, I've been there, I've done that. There's really nowhere else for me to go. That is the worst thing in the world that we could believe because you are so much bigger. Instead, God, open our eyes to the invitation that says, this is only the beginning. This is truly just the beginning. You haven't even exhausted the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more. And that we can experience glory to glory to glory. Glory to glory to glory. That it will be brightening and enlightening to us, and it will be changing to the people around us. God, give us courage, because it's a risk. But tonight, for anybody with me who says, God, it's a risk I want to take, I need to take that risk with you. I don't have any other options other than to just give up. If there is something in you tonight that says, I need to figure out this new way. I need to make a move in a new direction. I need to have a change. I need to have something, and I need help. God, I want to invite you right now to come and show us the people. Show us the people that you've put in our lives that will help us take that next step so we don't have to take it alone. Show us the opportunities we have in our days and in our weeks to take moments with you and bring ourselves to you. Show us those unveiling opportunities and give us hope that it won't just be a futile exercise, that we're not just speaking into the wind. Instead, we're speaking to one who has all the ability, all the love, all the compassion in the world, and knows exactly what we need for exactly where we are. Thank you, Lord. I don't do this very often, but I'm going to invite anyone who wants to, before we go, to make some kind of a statement. Sometimes the best way is to just pray your own prayer in your heart. Sometimes the best way is to tell a friend, like, hey, I realize that something does need to change for me. I do need to make a renewed commitment to this, and I wanna do it with a friend, somebody who can encourage me when it gets hard. Sometimes you literally need to physically do something to say, I'm here, I'm taking a new step, I'm doing something different. But before you go, that's my invitation to you, to do something, whether it's between you and the Lord or you and somebody else, to say, this has got to be a new season. Because I really do strongly feel like it's not just for one or two, this is for a lot, maybe every single one of us here. Certainly, this area up here, if you want to spend a little extra time just in prayer, or you want to spend some time, we've got lots of room up here. I'm going to spend a little more time playing. I should mention that we have a couple things coming up, actually, before we do that. Jimmy, would you mind coming and letting us know what's going on, and then I'll just take a few minutes after.
Mike and I wanted to make you aware of some things. There's community potluck coming up Sunday, November 27th. Here, last name's A through L, bring a side dish or dessert. M through Z main dish. And that's a great time to invite anybody who likes to eat or could use food that they didn't pay for, or someone to hang out with while they eat. Jen.
Okay, I just want to send out an invitation for the women. We're going to be having a craft day, or if you want to bring gifts to wrap and just need some time to do it away from the house, I'm opening up my house. It's in Springfield. We'll hand out the address if you need it. You can choose to bring your own craft, or we're going to have stuff set up to make snow globes. If you would like to do that, I just ask that if you want to make a picture one, to bring a picture, or you can bring an item to put into the mason jars to make a snow globe. So that's it.
After the potluck will be community worship night also. So you can stay and do this sort of thing some more. And then don't forget offering box is the white box over there. And the double doors is where kids are. And don't forget to get them. And I'll be over here being present with God, just like Joel's talking about. If you need to do something, step one is always step one. And it often looks like moving one of your feet. Even just one.
All right, we are officially dismissed, and if you want to spend a little time, you're welcome to do that. Thanks for getting your kiddos. Have a great evening.